Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're so glad to have you here. My name is Folusha Badamosi, and I'm going to be the moderator of today's session. So we have two sessions coming up today, which are both extremely exciting. The first one is COVID-19, Facts and Fiction, and that's going to be presented by Dr. Alero Roberts. And the second topic, also quite exciting, is Leveraging Technology for Success, presented by Aboyeji. We're so glad to have you all here. Can you please give yourselves a few virtual high fives, give yourself a virtual hug. Ordinarily, we would be in the same room, but due to, COVID-19, we're all going to be participating here online, and we're so glad to have you. So please give yourself a virtual high five. I can see a lot of comments in the chat box already. Hi, everyone. Glad to have you all here. Thank you for all the thumbs up. Give yourself some high fives, slap some high fives in the air. Hello, hi there, everyone. Good to have you all here. We're going to have a great time. Okay, so let me just get right to it. Let me give a few facts about WIMBIZ for those who do not know. So as many of us know, WIMBIZ is a nonprofit organization that has existed for the last 19 years. We have so many programs that inspire, empower, and advocate for greater representation of women in leadership positions and in the public and private sector. WIMBIZ has a contributory associate pool of over 770 accomplished women. Some of you are here, so give yourselves another high five for that if you are a WIMBIZ associate. And we have over 10,000 women in our database. WIMBIZ collaborates with credible domestic and international global organizations to deliver programs which have influenced over 119,000 women since inception. Some of you are here as well, so give yourselves another high five for that. So our vision at WIMBIZ is to be the catalyst that elevates the status and influence of women and their contributions to nation building. Our mission is to inspire and empower women to attain leadership positions in business, management, and public service. And through this, we have different programs and different events that we constantly run throughout the year. We are the first Nigerian NGO to be rated by NGO Advisor, and we are rated as 428 worldwide. We are also the only African Nigerian affiliate partner and representative of the International Women's Entrepreneurship Challenge, IWEC Foundation. WIMBIZ is also a volunteer-based organization funded largely by donations and contributions by members and partners, and its supporter for the Code of Ethics and Conduct for NGOs. For more information, check out wimbiz.org. So let me do a quick introduction of our first amazing and rambunctious speaker, Dr. Roberts. She's an amazing, amazing woman, for those of you here who know her. She is the senior lecturer and consultant at Lagos University Teaching Hospital, that is LUTH. And she's also a graduate of College of Medicine, University of Lagos. She started her professional medical career in private practice in 1985, rising from medical officer to hospital administrator of a private hospital in Lagos. Her areas of research have focused largely on child survival, looking at early infant and child nutrition. She teaches both undergraduate and postgraduates in public health nutrition. Let's give her a warm welcome and a bunch of virtual claps right now. Let's see some claps in that chat box. Let's give her some claps, some accolades. Let's hail her as she comes up. Dr. Roberts, over to you. We're excited to hear from you. And thank you for all the participation in the chat box. Let's keep them coming. Over to you, Dr. Roberts.
Thank you very much. I presume my video has now been unmuted because I wasn't able to do that before. Can you confirm that, please, for me, Folusha?
Okay, so I can hear you, but I can't see you yet. Can you start your video, please?
Okay, I will have to do that. Okay, so I can start my video now.
Yes.
It cannot start because the host has stopped it.
Okay. Can you share your screen?
Start my video, okay.
There you are. We can see you.
Yes, you can see.
Yeah, we can see you.
Brilliant. Okay, so in sharing the screen, I'm now coming to the very short presentation slides that I had done. I hope that's going to work. Brilliant. There we go. So, and starting very quickly, I actually don't want to take the entire 30 minutes talking about this because I want to leave a little bit more time for more interactive conversation about this. So very quickly looking at the facts and fiction about COVID, and we all know what it is. It's a disease caused by the coronavirus. It's new. COVID stands for corona, C-O, virus, V-I, disease. And because it was found in 2019, hence the 19 at the end of it. And it's known to be what we call a zoonotic disease. It started off, it's found coronaviruses are known to originate in mammals and birds, and somehow sometimes get transmitted to human beings. Exactly what made it happen this time is still under research. But the biggest fact or fictional issue has been this issue of 5G caused the disease. Now, I had to go and read this up myself. 5G is the new, the 5th generation of mobile technology that is just being rolled out across the world, and basically supposed to deliver much faster interconnectivity between people, and making mobile technology much faster, far more intuitive. Fantastic technology, absolutely fantastic technology. And because there is no way radio waves and microwaves can create viruses, except the virtual internet kind, there is absolutely no link to the claim that 5G caused the disease. The danger of this dangerous myth, if we don't go and read up the science behind 5G and the science behind coronavirus, is that it has led to people burning telephone masts, attacking the telephone engineers, and generally causing mayhem. And now communication is vital in our fight against this pandemic. So the last thing we need is for telephone masts or mobile masts to be burned down, and engineers to be. I mean, imagine we would not even be able to have this webinar if we did not have internet connectivity. And so there's absolutely no claim whatsoever that 5G causes the disease. The next big one that I want to look at is this issue of chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine and the use of drugs in the treatment of COVID. Now, there are several clinical trials ongoing. And these are clinical trials that are ongoing because they've been pre-designed to be the randomized clinical trials, and clinical trials that are ongoing simply because in the care and management of people with COVID, you know, doctors and nurses are literally throwing everything possible at it to make sure they don't lose any more patients. I mean, for any doctor or nurse nursing somebody in the ICU, the last thing you want is to see your patient die. So you will do anything that is scientifically plausible to make sure that they don't die. However, and the important thing we need to realize about this is that, you see, the power of chloroquine, and many of us who grew up in the West African part of the world know how much we used to use it in those days. The issue with chloroquine is that it has an inherent anti-inflammatory property, and which was why it was so effective against malaria in those days, when it was still active against the falciparum plasmodium that causes malaria. Because immediately the person took chloroquine, they immediately felt better from the relief of the inflammatory response to infection. And that is the part of chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine that is presently being investigated. Because of course, inflammation is the body's first response to any kind of attack. You know, a cut on the skin, a bacterial infection, a viral infection such as this, even an excess of sugar, we now know causes an inflammation. And because chloroquine has a good effect against that, however, hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine in and of themselves have toxic side effects. So not knowing what doses to use, and not knowing who is going to be effective against, and not knowing exactly where in the viral infection it actually works, it's something that should be taken on strict advisement. And now that we have found out, new research coming out even today, or at least late last night, has shown that there's actually no clinical efficacy that can be ascribed to chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. So it really doesn't matter what certain people in positions of power say, science is still science. The next big thing that has taken our airwaves is whether or not we need Chinese doctors. Now, needless to say, my first reaction to the news that Chinese doctors were coming to Nigeria was also one of anger and resentment. However, once that initial anger and resentment sort of flew through my brain, the scientific part of me took over, and I began to think, first of all, we have extant regulations about people coming to practice medicine in Nigeria, which affects even Nigerians trained in the diaspora. Those regulations are still in force and we practice them. Then there's the issue of the scientific world is leveraging heavily on the expertise from an interconnected global village. No one person has all the knowledge. So we must leverage on the interconnectedness of the global village and where the expertise is coming from. Don't forget that because of our success with Ebola, at a time when doctors were on strike, at a time when the health sector was supposedly in shambles, because of that, we have actually become literally world experts in Ebola. And just the same way we are asking Chinese expertise in battling corona to come and help us, is the same way we also export expertise in Ebola to other parts of Africa that are battling it. How do you think? Let's examine the data now. How do you think that Ebola in DRC Congo has not yet reached Nigerian borders? Because whether or not the world wants to know it, Nigeria is actually very up to speed in pandemic preparedness. Are we all the way there? No, not yet. However, we are aware of our shortcomings, we are aware of our strengths, and we are aware of the need to keep ahead of the curve. So the point is that we have to make decisions about the expertise we're going to take on based on available, credible evidence. And if people are ready to pay for Chinese expertise to come in with Chinese equipment and consumables, then yes, please, we should accept it. Because whether or not we want to admit it, as of this morning, Wuhan is working. If we want Nigeria to continue working, we need to leverage on all the expertise the world has to offer. The third one I'm going to attack is this issue of whether or not to use masks and PPEs. Now, most and generally, the evidence is not yet all in the sense that we don't know exactly the mode of transmission. However, we do know certain things help. And because of this, the NCDC has issued 5 guidelines about the use of masks and PPEs. Or let me just keep it to the mask, because personal protective equipment really is for the frontline workers, the nurses, the doctors, the physiotherapists, those who actually manage the patients. So the wearing of face masks or its equivalent, the NCDC has recommended, is an optional additional layer to be used in addition to other measures. And the most important measures are physical distancing. Notice I didn't say social distancing, because as of right now, none of us here are practicing social distancing. We are all very, very connected through this webinar. However, we are all physically distant from one another. So physical distancing is what we are harping on, keeping at least a meter away from everybody else. And then the use of hand hygiene, washing hands with soap and water regularly. And in the absence of being able to wash with soap and water for 20 seconds, using an alcohol-based sanitizer regularly. The danger with masks is that it gives people a false sense of protection. And if you are not careful with the putting on and removal of masks, if you are not, what's the word I'm looking for? If you're not very careful with whether or not you bin it properly, use of pure clean masks every single time, what you do is give people an idea that because they have the mask on, they are now immune from infection, and they now don't practice as much physical distancing as they should. The use of medical and surgical grade masks really should be left to the frontline workers. So as far as I am concerned, and I will state it clearly, seeing surgical grade masks on the faces of people who have no intention or ability or skill to carry out a surgically invasive procedure is a waste of precious resources. Masks can be made of cloth or other improvised materials as long as they are washed regularly and changed carefully. The second recommendation is that the use of face masks is particularly advised when attending large gatherings, such as shopping outlets or going to the market, the shops, or anywhere where you're going to be in a large gathering. And particularly the third one is that it should be used definitely by people who have symptoms. Now, what the mask does is prevent the spread of infected droplets from people who may have been exposed to coronavirus but not yet exhibiting symptoms, since it doesn't show on the face. So it prevents those droplets from falling on surfaces and whatnot, being picked up by hands and put into the eyes, nose, or mouth. The fourth recommendation is that because of the global shortage, Wuhan has only just come online, medical masks should be reserved for frontline workers, and public resources should be preserved to procure medical and surgical grade masks for the patients and the healthcare workers who need them the most. In the absence of surgical and medical masks, there are a lot of procedures that we cannot carry out. Now, for older people, 60 and above, with existing medical conditions, they are particularly encouraged to wear masks as they are at a much higher risk of infection. And it is also further advised that people with respiratory problems and those already exhibiting symptoms should use the masks. And so I hope that's that on the masks. What's the lockdown strategy? That has been that's probably my last slide. The lockdown strategy is to help with the active case search. And this has the advantage of tracking the disease, which helps us contribute to the understanding of the mode of transmission, particularly in the community, and also helps us understand what we call the pathogenesis of COVID-19. We know that we are not seeing the severity of symptoms in our populations as is being seen in Europe, because we know that 50% of the population in Nigeria is aged 18 and under. This is definitely a disease of the older individuals. So the lockdown strategy is very, very inconvenient. It's throwing up all kinds of unintended consequences, but is also throwing up all kinds of unintended opportunities previously not seen before. And chief amongst them, for us as public health physicians, is this strengthening of the informal social networks within and between communities. These informal social networks were so crucial, unbeknownst to us at the time, very crucial in mitigating the portended disaster of Ebola in 2014. And it's something that we're leveraging on again, you know, through to not only understand the spread and mitigate the spread of coronavirus, but understand and mitigate the danger of insecurity and the fragility of our informal work space. But I'm sure that the next speaker will speak extensively on that. It also helps us to extend the formal and informal databases, which is what we're encouraging communities to do. Register the people within the communities, preferably with biometrics, so that they even have an idea of who they are helping and who they are not helping. So this is my last slide, which is going to leave us, I hope, with a lot of time for some interaction. And this is where the APHP and the Association of Public Health Physicians of Nigeria, the Lagos State chapter, has partnered with the Wellbeing Foundation and the Pocket Patient MD for this fast check. And we'll encourage as many of you as possible not only to take it, but to share it, because it has the inherent ability to also help us map the hotspots of where people may be who feel they may have been exposed to the coronavirus and need check. So it speeds up our response and helps us. I think that's it. I would like to take questions now. How do I unshare my video? How do I unshare my screen?
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts. You could just take your video off at this time. So just stop sharing your video and I'll proceed to ask you the questions. Thank you so much for that very enlightening session and for all that you have shared with us. Very, very, very helpful. So I have a few questions here. I'm going to start with this one. Someone has asked, what about the radiation that comes from 5G? What are the health risks associated with that?
Funnily enough, the radiation that comes from 5G is lower than the radiation that is in your microwave, and certainly lower than that which is in your Bluetooth. All of you who are using earpods, think about that, right next to your brain.
Oh, wow, that is quite interesting. Okay, another question here is, So based off of, this whole theory about wearing face masks and not wearing face masks, some people are wondering about when exactly they should wear face masks based off of the feedback that you've given during the presentation. So when is the best time to wear face masks?
Sincerely, I would advise that anybody going out into a potentially crowded place should just wear a face mask. One, it protects you from picking up unwanted viruses, and it protects everybody else from picking up your unwanted viruses. Because the truth of the matter is we still have other upper respiratory tract infections that may not necessarily be caused by corona, but because we are trying to now avoid a cross-contamination or what we call a alternative diagnosis, let's just be safe. There is some correlational state data that shows that the communities or the societies that embarked on widespread wearing of face masks seem to have much lower curves than those that didn't.
All right, thank you so much. We've got someone here who is watching from Ghana. Welcome, welcome. And she would like to know if all the tips that you have shared are relevant to West Africa as a whole.
Absolutely relevant to everybody. I'm talking from an African point of view. I think in Ghana as well, they would find that 50% of their population are also aged 18 and under. So it's highly relevant. Unmute. Folusha, I can't hear you.
Hello, sorry about that. Yeah. Somebody is also asking, what about the news that one of the Chinese doctors tested positive for COVID-19?
Really? Next question.
I'm guessing that's false. Okay, really? Let's move on. Okay, we've already answered that one. All right, then please, can you reconfirm that a normal cloth mask can be used for face mask?
A normal cloth mask can be used, yes.
Okay, fantastic. This is actually
even
somebody
just
that
wearing your scarf and wrapping it around your nose and mouth is better.
Oh, really? So like a pashmina in the winter?
Like a pashmina in the winter, exactly.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much for that. That's actually from somebody who has dialed in all the way from Paris. Thank you so much for that question. Then we have another question here. Is there any credence to the theory that BCG vaccines provide some protection around COVID-19?
Now, this is the problem with correlational statistics, because if you put two things one on top of the other, it looks as if one causes the other or one protects against the other. So far, it's not been peer reviewed. So we would need to look at the credibility. I would like the scientific peers, but so far it does seem to correlate. But then bear in mind that the societies that have had widespread BCG immunizations are also the communities in which 50% of the population is 18 years and under. So which one came first, the chicken or the egg?
Or the egg. Interesting. Thank you so much for that. Okay, somebody here is asking, what of the gloves I see people wearing a lot? Is that useful? No?
Wash your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds, and in the absence of that, use an alcohol-based sanitizer. The problem with wearing gloves is that, again, it gives people a false sense of security. The gloved hand touches an infected surface and then rubs your eye because something got into your eye. Hello?
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Now, somebody actually asked a question about rural areas, just piggybacking off of that gloves question. Someone says, in areas where water is scarce, sanitizers are scarce and all that, what do they do? What are the options for people in that type of an area?
It's still sanitation. We are working very hard. That's why water and sanitation hygiene has become such a big thing globally. And there are several NGOs working to make sure that, particularly sanitation in health facilities, sanitation in homes, people understanding the need for sanitation. It is still a global issue. We just have to make water available.
Okay, thank you for that. Someone here has asked, what are the key benefits of this lockdown? So the lockdown in this pandemic, and the fact that you had mentioned earlier that it strengthens informal community networks, and that person happened to miss the point. So could you please just repeat that for us? Thank you.
Okay, our benefits for the lockdown strategy is to assist the active case search. Now, the active case search is going house to house and identifying people with symptoms. So it achieves two things. Number one, we get to understand the scope and spread the scope of the transmission. Number two, it feeds into global data that better helps us to understand the transmission mechanics of the virus. So is this purely a virus that spread from imported cases to maybe through the drivers and the housemaids and the secretaries and whatnot, leaving their places of work with potentially infected organs and then going in? We don't know. So that is what we're trying to understand. Yeah, and then what I was saying about the informal social networks is that, okay, look at what is happening in many of the areas in Lekki where people are now getting together to provide food for the so-called vulnerables. Now, do you know who those vulnerables are? Are these vulnerables local to your community? Are they hearing that you are giving food in Lekki, so they've walked over from Jarabadia, from Mushi? It's an opportunity for every community to now put these vulnerables on a database. Who is who in this community? What are you doing here? Where do you stay or live? Or what work are you doing? Because I know there are many vulnerables who, because of the informal nature of their work, the runners who sell gala and pure water in the traffic, or soap and fruit and apples, are probably part of the community who now have no work and no means. Let them be registered on a database. There's no shame in it. Let the LGA chairman know who is who in the community, with biometrics if possible, to help us better understand what the communities are. And then this also strengthens the community so that when strangers come into the community, they are more quickly identified.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Someone is asking, is there any truth to the assertion that ibuprofen and blood pressure medication makes one more susceptible to COVID-19?
Well, again, that's what we call correlational statistics. Ibuprofen in the case that the infection you're suffering from could be coronavirus, because it affects what we call the ACE2 receptors in the lung, which the virus can use this to enter. Then if you're on blood pressure medication, the problem is you're only on blood pressure medication because you have an underlying hypertension, which now makes you vulnerable to COVID-19. So that's correlational.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, if one has had COVID-19, do they become immune?
That is the big question. We do not know. And this is what has hampered the development of the so-called antibody test. Is it like the common cold? You can have a cold on Monday, recover on Wednesday, and have another cold on Thursday. No immunity whatsoever. Is it like flu that gives you some kind of immunity for about 9 to 12 months, but you need to have another vaccine the following year? Or is it like measles, where have it once, you're immune for life? We're even studying that of Ebola, because we are now not fully convinced that recovery even from Ebola leads to lifelong immunity. So these are all questions that only time will answer. But the jury is still out, so we don't know.
Okay, thank you. Someone is asking, the radiation might be lower, as you have said, Ma, but it emits more dangerous rays than 5G, which is one of the effects it brings that makes it more powerful than 5G. I think that what this person is trying to say is that the effects of 5G is apparently more dangerous than the microwave ones that you spoke about earlier. Is there any truth to this?
I have no idea. I'm not a telecommunication. I'm not going to dabble into that. But I do know that it's non-ionizing radiation, and I know that all the research we have done from 1G to 4G, all the research that has been done has shown no link whatsoever between the use of GSMs and brain tumors or leukemias or any of that. No link whatsoever. So there's no reason to believe that 5G will suddenly, which is simply a step up from what exists already.
All righty, thank you. Why are we seeing such low testing levels here compared to other African countries?
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. It's a very, very good question. There are several aspects. Now, the test that we're doing is a molecular biology test. So it takes the swab from the nose or the throat or both, and that swab we assume will have some virus in it. Okay. Now, assuming that the virus is there in any form, there's no way, the virus is so small, so we're not going to look at it under a microscope. What we need to do is replicate the virus. And that is what is done in what is called a polymerase chain reaction, PCR. That takes time. There's no way to shortcut it. It simply takes time. And it requires that we must have the correct swab. It requires that we must have the correct viral transport medium. It requires that we must have the correct primers against which to replicate the virus. And then when we replicate the virus, we can come out with the result. Whether we like it or not, it is a process of time. Of course, it requires for us to have a very expensive PCR machine. And most importantly, what people don't realize, it requires us to have trained molecular biologists. We have very few of them in country. Hence, we are very eager to have the Chinese molecular biologists, because a molecular biologist is not somebody you train in hours to days. Somebody that requires training over years. So unless we have enough molecular biologists to run enough PCR machines, to get enough primers and enough viral transmission medium, testing is what testing is.
Wow. Wow, interesting. So it sounds like there's no quick testing with this particular strain at all. Not yet. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Someone here is asking that as a health expert, can you possibly predict a lifespan for this pandemic? So how long do you think that it might last for?
Why do you want to put me in trouble? Even the junior health minister in the UK who dared to predict 2020, look what happened to her.
I know, right?
There's no way anybody can predict. And then the thing is that no, there's not even no way anybody can, because a pandemic is a pandemic, but the severity of it is what now, because the flu is still an ongoing pandemic. We've still got MERS going on as not a pandemic, but as an epidemic, you know, so how long is a piece of string?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Someone says here, I think you've already answered this, but it's this question again about the materials for the mask. What best material is there to use for a face mask? And I think that you pretty much said, you know, cloth.
Yeah.
Whatever, just cover yourself or cover up your face. Someone wants to know about asymptomatic patients, right? So we hear that there are many of them.
It is a big problem. And we believe that, again, our age has something to do with it. So if a young person has been exposed to the coronavirus and is carrying the virus, he may not exhibit symptoms because he's simply young and strong with a very, very healthy immune system. But he's a spreader. He or she is a spreader and can spread it in the area where they are vulnerable, older people or people with comorbidities. That's the danger.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Someone is asking, well, actually saying that they are worried about protection for doctors and caregivers. How have these groups been provided for? Since you are on the front lines.
Yeah, we are very grateful to a lot of NGOs, foundations, corporate bodies who have stepped up to the plate. Even now, I'm dealing with another body that is showing me pictures. Is this okay? Can they buy this? Can they buy that? We are very, 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 very grateful. Please keep it coming, because it's the only thing that has given our volunteers the impetus to actually go out and do the active. We were not going to do active case search until we started seeing these things flowing into the mainland general hospital, where the isolation center is flowing into the NCDC at the central. We are very, very, very grateful. We need more because they are disposable, obviously. But the fact that they are available has made everybody a lot more willing to step up to the front line, because you are only as good as you are healthy. And you can see from the very unfortunate death of a doctor we suffered yesterday that we are just as vulnerable as anybody else. We are very, 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 very grateful. Unmute.
Apologies. Someone is here saying that the N95 masks are more effective than the cloth ones. What's the validity?
The N95 mask is a surgical grade mask. If I see it on the face of anybody that is not a surgeon, an anesthetist, or an intensivist, I will do something very dangerous. Please release the N95 masks to be used by those who need to do the far more invasive and dangerous procedures, such as intubating a patient or putting in a tracheostomy or delivering a baby or doing a CS or doing surgery. All that the frontline workers need are the medical grade masks, which are much easier and cheaper. And all that anybody else needs is a cloth. In fact, for a long time, this has been a habit of mine. If I'm coughing or sneezing into my clothing, like we said, the pashmina scarf or anything, yes.
Yeah.
Or go and sew a couple of cloth masks that match your Ankara.
Okay, someone here is asking that for asthma patients, right, is there any use for them to nebulize at this point in time? Does that come in helpful or handy?
Keep your nebulizer near. I
Okay.
can't say whether, because ideally every person who has a problem with asthma should be very, very close to their respiratory physician and should be on some kind of daily steroid drug that helps lower the risk of you going into an asthmatic attack. So please, I will beg every asthmatic or mother of an asthmatic or parent of an asthmatic, please make sure make sure that your child or you are on the correct medication and your nebulizer is topped up and charged, please. And stay away and wear a mask or don't go out. Be aware of the fact that you're very vulnerable. Very, very vulnerable.
So all those that are more vulnerable should stay at home. If you're more vulnerable, please stay at home. Thank you. Excellent.
Stay away from everybody, please.
All right. Thank you. Somebody here would like to know how we as ordinary people can support the healthcare workers at the front line of this pandemic. I think that is information that, that you can share with us and we can share with everybody on here, just so that people know, other ways that they can support.
The important thing is that fast check is so vital. And it's going to take a lot of, if everybody can make everybody do it, it means that we then have a hotspot map of where people are and what their concerns are and whether they are likely to have been exposed. So we can do more targeted testing and more targeted active case search. So that's one thing that will be very, very useful to us on the front line, and then also, to be honest with you, mapping your community in terms of who is there and not there. Also very useful. Support those who are doing it if you can, and or if you're doing it yourself, kudos to you. Keep at it.
Thank you. Someone would like to know that for sickle cell patients, is there any other precaution besides hand washing and sanitizing?
Stay at home. Again, one of the
stay at home. All right.
Because they are also very, very vulnerable.
Okay, all right. How many times a day would you advise that we wash our hands?
Every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes. Sincerely, I tend to do every hour and a half. And definitely after touching, I've become, and this has been since 2014, so I've become a bit OCD about hand washing.
Okay, so just wash it as often as you can,
as often
really.
As you can. But this time,
all right.
So the rubbing with soap, because the rubbing with soap, I should have mentioned that the rubbing with soap actually cuts the oily coats of the virus particles. It destroys it. So the rubbing with soap, that's why we are now saying 20 seconds. Sing the happy birthday song twice. So the rubbing with soap, front and back, actually destroys the virus, as well as the alcohol-based, or alcohol, isopropyl alcohol.
Fantastic, thank you. Someone says, current research has shown that the virus actually affects the youth and grown folk alike. Is there any truth to that?
That is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It does, it affects everybody, but the manifestation is worse in older people.
In older people.
Everybody can get it. A newborn baby, we've got the report.
Yeah.
Newborn babies are coming up, but the manifestation of it and whether you will show symptoms is what differs. And while the younger people are not showing symptoms, they can spread to others. So God forbid you're the mother of an asthmatic child and another child comes to play and is spreading the virus. And they're all playing happily until the asthmatic child now goes into problems. That is why we're saying, please
stay at home.
And be sure that, we have to be aware that it can be spread by anybody. So that is very true.
Yeah. Okay. What about pregnant women? How are they affected?
So far, we haven't seen any particular worsening in terms of the manifestation of the disease, but they are affected. What we don't know is that we know that there are several cases where the pregnant woman has had a baby and the baby has tested positive, the mother has tested, whether the mother passed it to the baby inside the womb or the baby contracted it, we don't know. But manifestation-wise, they don't have any worse outcomes than anybody else, except if they have other underlying. I think the one death was recorded.
Issues.
Yeah, had issues. And of course, this Ghanaian nurse who died yesterday, may her soul rest in peace. You know, she got it quite badly. I was really sorry to hear that.
Rest in peace, amen. COVID-19.
Sorry?
Is there a relationship between blood group and contracting COVID-19?
Again, correlational. Again, correlational. So whether it is because 3/4 of the African population happen to be blood group O, or whether it's because 50% of the African population happen to be 18 and below, or whether it's because 60% of the African population, we don't know what has made the manifestation in the African population so much less severe than what we're seeing in Europe. The answers will still come out, but it will be a process of time.
Yeah. Someone says, how soon can we get rapid testing? Because, for instance, kids getting back in school, you know, just to ensure that, you know, everyone going to school is fine. So, yeah.
To be honest, that is going to be the biggest game changer. That is going to be the biggest game changer. Once we can get rapid testing. And I wish I had time enough to explain the immunology of it, but I can tell you that even before getting a vaccine, to be honest, rapid testing is going to be the biggest game changer. I know what rapid testing did in the fight against malaria. So me personally, I'm a proponent for rapid testing, but I must warn, there's a lot of rubbish out there. A lot of rubbish. So again, I will not base any clinical judgment today on any rapid test available today, because the chance of false negative and false positive is so high, you cannot make a clinical judgment. But the day we get credible rapid testing, oh boy, coronavirus, you're kicked out.
It's doomed.
Doomed. Doomed.
We're waiting for that day. We are praying that it comes very, very quickly. Okay. If chloroquine has anti-inflammatory properties, why are patients being asked to use paracetamol and acetaminophen instead of NSAIDs?
Again, NSAIDs are the same one that the ibuprofen, aspirin, are all the NSAIDs.
In family. Because
of the problem that we have with the ACE2 receptors and the bleeding of NSAIDs, it is safer to use paracetamol because it does the same thing, yes. So for corona, since we don't know why there's an exacerbation of severe symptoms, it's just safer to use paracetamol.
Paracetamol. Thank you so much. This is going to make you laugh. If the Chinese medical team could not help the Italians, how are we so sure they can be of help to Nigerians in this fight against the pandemic?
I'm not laughing. It's a very valid question. And again, it comes to this issue of people just jumping on the bandwagon. You notice that I kept saying Chinese expertise. I didn't say Chinese medical expertise.
Doctors.
Chinese expertise. So we need expertise in the testing. We need expertise in even fixing our machinery. We need expertise in treatment, case management. We need expertise. So it is a generalized expertise that we are relying on that has come in. Do you understand? So, and they couldn't help Italians any more than anybody would have been able to help the Italians. The Italian population is the second oldest population, second only to Japan.
In the world.
So those numbers were going to go that way anyway. And they had allowed the virus to really get hold of their population in the northern areas of Italy, as opposed to the south, before the Chinese. So I'm sure the Chinese have had a lot to do with helping them to understand and mitigate further spread of the disease. But taking it just on a basis of they landed on Tuesday and the numbers went up on Wednesday is too simplistic. Nobody should even
view. Okay, thank you for that. Someone is asking, paracetamol, Panadol, what's the difference? So if paracetamol is okay.
Brand name. Paracetamol is the active ingredient. So paracetamol is just the generic name for the drug. Paracetamol, acetaminophen are the same thing. The Americans use acetaminophen, which is a right-sided molecule. Europe uses paracetamol, which is a left-sided molecule. Brand name is Panadol. So several brand names exist.
Okay, thank you. Someone is asking for couples, so couples that live together, whether married or not, and one is in the essential services sector and has to go to work, has to go out, should abstinence be applied?
No, so long as the person comes back and has a proper bath.
Oh,
so
fantastic. Great answer. Okay.
There's a certain protocol that, you know, we advise. Your outside shoes remain outside. So, you know, you go straight into the shower, possibly clothes and all. Strip off in the shower, take a good shower head to toe. This is not the time for, you notice, no fancy hairdos. Take a good shower head to toe for at least a minute, longer, 3 minutes. Let those clothes go straight into the laundry with plenty of soap and water, and then wear something clean that does not go out, and please let life continue.
All right, fantastic. Someone is asking here that if you have not left your house in weeks, you know, so you've been isolated for quite a while, is there any reason to keep washing your hands?
Yes, there is.
There is. Okay.
Cleanliness is an ongoing, that's the problem with cleanliness and sanitation. It's an all of the one day you slip up is the one day you pay for it.
So just keep washing your hands regardless.
It has to become a way of life.
Fantastic. Okay. Somebody's asking that if you still have to visit the open markets and shops, right? Besides covering your face, as you have said, is there any other way that you can avoid contacting it?
Yes. Again, it comes back to hand washing. So as you're coming in, everything you come in with gets a nice good wash. Fruits and vegetables are washed. Tins are washed, packages are wiped down with a mild solution of sodium hypochlorite. Household bleach is fine, 1 in 10 mixtures. Wipe everything down. It boils down to the sanitation as you come in. Of course, be very thankfully things like eba, rice, and all these we cook with very, very, very hot water and so on and so forth. But it boils down to the sanitation. So I would advise, even where you go to the market, make sure that you go to clean markets, and people are paying attention to that. We have been going around trying to decontaminate a lot of markets. The market sanitation has been very vibrant and robust in a lot of the larger markets, and we're hoping that this will trickle down to all the other smaller markets. So, but please, again, sanitation is key. Hello? Are we frozen here? Yes.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, I think we're still on. I was just checking. Maybe,
okay.
Is anyone from the Secretariat here? I noticed that Folusha.
Yes, both the Secretariat and Folusha seem to have gone offline.
Okay. I think somebody was suggesting that maybe you answer some questions while we're waiting.
Okay, they're rolling pretty fast, but there was a question that I saw that I felt...
You can just pick the ones you see. Someone was asking about washing vegetables. So that might be a good place to start.
We have to wash vegetables, and you know, we've been taught how to wash vegetables right from our mother's lap. So washing vegetables is, you know, you must just wash vegetables. You cannot eat vegetables without washing them. So that's, yeah. Now, do we have to wash every item we buy from the shop? Well, certainly tins, we have always advocated that tinned goods must be washed because of the danger of contracting a disease we call leptospirosis. Because everything that is in a supermarket has been stored somewhere, and we know that rats droppings and whatnot and cockroach droppings can be all over them and whatnot. So as you are bringing tin goods and whatnot back into the house, give them a good wash with soap and water. we've always said that it prevents Lassa fever, it prevents leptospirosis, and of course now the corona. Hi, Folusha, you're back on.
I'm so sorry, everyone. Technology fun. I'm back. All right. Okay. So somebody has asked another question. With normal washing vegetables, will normal washing of vegetables work? As in, if you can't use soap, obviously, because they're vegetables. So just washing with water.
Yes.
Would you say hot water? Would you say vinegar or?
No, ordinary washing of vegetables with the regular tap water is fine.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. Could you comment on the benefits or otherwise of COVID antigen antibody tests?
That's what I'm saying. How many years do we have for medical school immunology here? It took me 2 years to do this. So antibody testing, again, we are not sure of the usefulness of it because we do not know how long the antibodies are going to last in your body and whether having the antibodies means you're immune to the disease. We don't know because you have antibodies to the common cold right now. If you get the cold tomorrow, you will still suffer for it. So antigen testing is what we're doing now, which is the PCR that I've explained.
All right, thank you. Is the hot ginger, lemon, honey, and garlic drink essential as a protective measure?
Not as a protective measure, but it certainly is very useful when you have a cough and a tickly throat. And again, because we insist that if you do have a cough and we insist that you take a lot of fluids because that is certainly very helpful against upper respiratory tract infection. So I don't know about the garlic, but I'll certainly go for the hot water, ginger, lemon, and honey mixture. Honey, no, is very useful for soothing coughs and better than taking a cough mixture.
Cough mixture. Somebody asked as well, just kind of based off of all what we've heard and all that, we know that it's written everywhere what the symptoms are, but somebody would like to know, what are the symptoms that one should look out for? So these things happen and I should go or I should make a call.
Number one, history of exposure. So somebody who has traveled, come back, history of exposure to somebody who has traveled and come back. Fever, cough, difficulty in breathing, loss of sense of smell and or appetite. In a lot of people were seeing diarrhea. A lot of people who are symptomatic were seeing diarrhea. So those are about the top eight symptoms that I would go with. History of contact or recent travel, fever, cough, difficulty in breathing, loss of sense of smell, loss of appetite, and diarrhea. Not necessarily in that order.
In that order, thank you. Someone here is asking, now, is there any truth to the claim about the warm temperate region that we're in and a connection with the virus?
Again, correlational statistics. So is it because we're in a warm temperate area? Is it because 50% of our population is under, again, all correlational.
Yeah.
All those things
correlational
in the same area. So we can't, it doesn't explain the spread in India.
Indeed. Okay, we have so many more questions. Like the questions are unreal. Like I'm trying so hard, to get to everybody, but I can't. I will only have very, very few minutes.
Will the questions be stored? Is it something I can scan through and sort of answer by chat, while the second speaker?
Oh, that would be fantastic. Okay, so, what I will do is that I will have Adedoyin, who is on with me. Adedoyin, if you can just kind of compile some of the questions that haven't been answered.
I think this one is
and
very
you can direct chat that to Dr. Robert.
After you have survived and been discharged after catching, and what response? Family. That's one of the key questions that we really don't know. So far, it hasn't looked like it. We're watching from cases around the world whether people who have caught it, recovered, and been discharged are still at risk of spreading it. It doesn't look like it, but we are not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Are there efforts within Nigeria to create vaccines?
No. We'll rely on those who are doing it. Yeah, we don't have a vaccine.
Okay. There are concerns about the growing numbers in Nigeria. The numbers are growing every day. What does this mean for us?
The numbers are certainly not growing at the rate at which they are growing in Europe. But the numbers will of necessity grow. We know there's community transmission. We know people are getting it. And if we test you and you probably, people will test positive. If we do 1,500 tests a day, we'll expect that at least 5 or 6% of them may end up being positive. The question is, if they're not symptomatic, then there's no problem. The problem is going to be to those who are vulnerable, the older people with comorbidities. So we'll still expect to see a few more, a rise in numbers, but it's certainly not rising at the same trajectory. And that's the important thing, it's not rising at the same trajectory as the European countries, and it is not rising at a trajectory that is putting our present health sector under threat. That is
fantastic. Okay.
Not yet rising at a trajectory that puts our health sector under risk.
Okay, thank you for saying that, because there are many questions in the chat box I see about that, about our health care system. For recovered patients of COVID-19, for the recovered patients, how long can they still infect others?
No, once you've recovered, we don't expect that you can infect others, because you've recovered. What we judge that you've recovered by the fact that the virus is no longer in you. You test negative for the virus twice over 48 hours. So once you are negative, you have no virus, you can't spread it.
Okay. Alrighty. Someone here has an interesting question. When you mentioned us washing ourselves from head to toe, right? Based off of the fact that maybe we've gone out, we've gone to work and come back. She's saying that what would you advise for women with elaborate hairstyles at this point in time? What do you advise? I love it. Can you please see Dr. Robert's hair? It's very simply done. She has two. It looks like you matted it into two.
Thank you very much. Very good.
Keep it simple, ladies. Keep it simple.
Very simple.
Keep it extremely simple.
That's it.
Yeah. This is not the time for your elaborate hairstyles.
No. All the hairstylists are going to target on my back now.
Wow. Okay. How safe are the groceries that we are buying? Can someone with the virus infect the groceries?
Depends on what you mean by groceries. If you're talking of your tomatoes, onions, and whatnot, you bring them in, you wash them, you use them, you cook. The stuff like lettuce, kale that you may be eating raw, please wash them very, very, very well. You know, but otherwise, standard hygiene practices are still very important. Don't go washing it in your salt, please. I didn't send you to do that.
What about beards? People are asking here for, people who have husbands or people in their homes who have beards. What do you advise? Should they cut it?
No, not necessarily. Men know how to keep their beards very well. Bearded men usually do very good stuff with their beards. A good grooming, soap and whatnot, and standard grooming. It's a good wash. The thing to do is to at least stay in the shower upwards of 20 seconds. Of course, nobody can shower in 20 seconds. Between 1 to 5 minutes to take a good shower. Yeah. Once you've had a good shower, everything is washed. You're perfectly all right. You're good to go.
You're good to go. Okay, excellent. I'm going to ask just 2 more questions because we're totally running out of time and there are so many. But just a really quick one. This house-to-house exercise, if the workers are exposed, won't they spread it to others by moving around that way?
That's why we need the PPEs. So no, they have standard protocols for engagement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're trained. To do.
Okay, I had a last question, but now there's so much more popping up that I'm trying to find it. There are reports of reactivated cases in South Korea. Does that mean that you are not immune after recovering from the virus?
This is what we don't know. This is what we don't know. Now, are these reactivated? Because when you say the term reactivated, it means that your infection A went away and it's infection A you have again. Or is it you had infection A, it went away, and now this is infection B? So we don't know, and until the genome sequencing is done, we may not have an answer to that question yet.
Fantastic. Dr. Roberts, you have been absolutely, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for answering all the questions, for bringing in humor, for making us laugh while teaching us, and just giving us a great time. Thank you so much. Thank you to all those who have been very active in the chat box. Dr. Roberts, you need to look at this chat box.
I'm looking at it.
I mean, people are, answering questions. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And
it is amazing.
There are 456 participants. Woo!
Yeah, so yes, so thank you so much to everybody who has been so active in this. Let's give Dr. Roberts an astounding virtual round of applause. I want to see all your claps in that chat box right now. Let me see all your claps in there. Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts.
Wow.
So thank you so much for doing this for us. Because of time, we're going to move very, very quickly on.
Please do the fast check. Please do the fast check. Give us a heat map of where you are, what your status is, what your concerns are, to help us direct interventions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts, and God bless you and all those on the front line. We love you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So
I'm still plugged in.
Thank you. All righty. So now we're going to jump off to our next speaker, who is Iyinoluwa Aboyeji. For those who don't know Iyinoluwa is an absolutely fantastic technology guy. He's general partner and co-founder of Future Africa, a platform that provides capital, coaching, and community for mission-driven innovators building an African future where purpose and prosperity is within everyone's reach. He's also co-founder of Andela and Flutterwave, yeah? So let us give him a warm welcome and virtual claps for Iyinoluwa Aboyeji as he steps up. Come on, Iyinoluwa, can you kindly put on your camera and your audio? Thank you. Thank you so much.
We'll do this. Sorry. Perfect. Just had to put on the light there. Hello, everyone.
Perfect. Now we
yeah.
can
Perfect.
see your face.
You can see my face. Okay, awesome. That's perfect. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's always WIMBIZ. An old guest in the house, and I guess, but for the coronavirus, we should all be gathering together in person at some point this year. So hopefully end soon so we can still do that. First of all, thank you, Folusha, for having me do this. Today, I'm supposed to just talk to you about leveraging technology to get through coronavirus. But I'll start by setting some context just in general. Dr. Roberts has done an amazing job of giving us the medical background. But my job is really to set the business context. And perhaps mine's a little bit, mine's a little bit more about how does this impact your business and what needs to happen. For us in the technology field, we feel like we've been living in a world before now, and like everybody came to join us. So whenever I talk to audiences about tech and how tech is changing things and enabling us to get through this health and economic crisis, the first thing I say is welcome to the future, because what COVID-19 is really doing is accelerating us into the future. And the way that it's actually done is because of this kind of constraint on physical distancing. So it means that the ways that we normally used to serve our customers, interact with our teams, they're no longer possible. Many of you have had to send your employees home. Many of you cannot go to the office and meet with your customers. So now, we're having this gathering, which would have been a full hall in a co-hotel here online, and it's just as vibrant and everything is going great. So this is just an example of what the world will look like. And I'm just going to talk about kind of three things. The first is typical reactions to the crisis from businesses and what we believe you should be doing now. Number two is we'll talk about how to adapt with technology and a very specific secret about adapting with technology that most people are going to miss. And then the third thing we'll talk about is actually staying safe online. This is something that's often overlooked, but has incredible consequences, right? So first of all, most people's reaction to this crisis will be one of three things. The first reaction would be to wait. And basically people's thought process would be, okay, it was a two-week lockdown, maybe it'll be another 2-week lockdown, and then it'll go away. Now, I'm not gonna take the step that even Dr. Roberts didn't take by telling you how long this will take. It's not in my place, but our best estimates are that we will continue in some form of managed lockdown for the next 18 months. That's what the science is saying, until we're able to find a vaccine and then basically spread that all over the world, we will have to stay in this kind of way for the next 18 months. And actually, that point of view is backed by historical research. So this is not the first time we're having a global pandemic. In 1918, we had the Spanish flu, and that took about 2 years to clear. So if you're waiting, that's not a good idea, because you're invariably going to die, right? So this is very, very important for everybody to understand, so that you don't fall into the false sense of security that this will be over soon and everything will come back to normal. 18 months, 8 months, this could likely go on for 8 months, maybe longer. So that's the first thing. Don't wait. Don't wait. You need to do something now. And if you need to do something now, you have two options, quite frankly, as a business. You're either going to have to adapt, or you have to just accept that your business is over and die. And quite frankly, whatever option you take, understand one thing is that none of your decisions are tied to your self-esteem. They're just general decisions that you have to make at this point. It doesn't mean anything bad if, unfortunately for you, you have to quit your business and shut it down. It doesn't mean anything if you have to make decisions to adapt your business, leveraging the skill sets and assets that you currently have. It's just life. And you shouldn't make it shouldn't be something that that impacts you psychologically. And if it does, you need to talk to a psychologist or talk to a psychotherapist that can help you through the thought process, because this is going to be a very incredibly difficult time. One thing that people may not quite be seeing is that because of the shutdown, there are consequences on the economic environment. And you know, what that generally means is because there's lower oil supply, you know, oil prices right now at about $19. There's not a lot of demand for oil because most places are shut down. And that's impacting one thing after the other, kind of like a domino, including eventually our economy. And so as a result, it's important for us to prepare ourselves for that reality. So first of all, don't wait. Make a decision right now to either quit or fight. Don't wait, make a decision to quit or fight. If you're quitting, you know, that's a good decision. However, you want to do it considerately and communicate clearly about why you're quitting. Now, there's some businesses that are going to be hard to resurrect right now. You know what I mean? So for example, if you run a business where it's linked to travel, now is a very tough time. You have to make some decisions about how you want to pivot your business, right? i.e. fight. If you're running business that involves very close physical contact, say things like events, now might be the time to rethink your strategy, because realistically, there's unlikely to be not a lot of events over the next 18 months. So these are some examples of different businesses where you might need to reconsider. If you decide to fight, now I want to talk to you about how that works. Now, what is happening with this coronavirus is that it's accelerating a digital future. We've seen it coming. So for example, in my business, we've been working from home since last year, even before the virus, because we just felt that, you know, remote work is the future. And so we would not, you know, spend time getting an office and adding additional costs. We also were seeing a recession in view, although we did not see the virus coming. But that has kept us in good stead, because now we don't have that cost on our books. But one of the biggest secrets to making that adaptation that people always forget is that it starts with your people. It actually just starts with your people. A lot of the best ideas for how you pivot through the crisis, or you readapt your business through the crisis, will come from your people on the ground. So this is not the time for you to keep them at a distance or for you to not communicate. This is the time for you to get ideas from your people about what other opportunities, right, will see you through. So you need to be in constant touch with your people, clearly communicate with your people, honestly work through the uncertainty with them. I've sat down with my staff and I've had to walk through very difficult conversations. We meet 3 times a week now just to talk about the future of our business. Most people might look at me as a tech person, but not realize, you know, first of all, I speak a lot, so that's a lot of physical contacts. Now, all those speaking engagements are gone, so I'm now on the webinar circuit. My investors are people who want to see people physically. So we had to design a product where our investors didn't have to see us, but we could keep investing. We typically have to do site visits to our companies. Now we have to find a way to track their metrics online and check in with them online. Everybody has to move the core of their business. But the best ideas will come from your people, and that would only happen if they feel as invested in the survival of your business as you are. It's very, very important for you to do that right now. Now, the second thing is, please, please, please keep your focus on the changing needs of your customers. You know, don't disappear. Don't disappear. This is the time to sit down with your biggest customers and understand how you can be helpful to them. I know it's a very tough situation because you're currently going through it yourself. And so your first thought is not to think about your customer, but I can guarantee you that's the best investment of time. Apart from spending time calming your employees down or your colleagues down, that's the best investment of time you can make. Sitting down with your customer, understanding how their business is changing, reading about what other small businesses, what other businesses in the industry are doing to cope with it. I saw a very great example right now on the chat going on, which is why I love this format, because we can see all the side conversations happening. And somebody was talking about air industry is down. Well, guess what? Cargo is going to go up, right? So how do you begin that process of reorienting your supply chain for travel? One thing that many people may be taking for granted is that every business has skills and assets that are very useful in this time. Even if you're in the travel industry, right? Now is the time to start to create content about going to other countries. People are at home. They have nothing else to do but watch content in many cases. Perhaps you can tell them what it feels like in China or elsewhere, even if you can't actually physically take them there. So think very differently about your skills and assets and how your skills and assets can be useful to your customers at this time. Lawyers, a lot of law firms may feel like they can't do business in person, but perhaps now is the time for you to start to put together, template documents to support your business customers through this time. Look at subscription law. This is the time to look at mediation instead of going to court, right? And these are things that can be done online in a Zoom call just like this. So you need to think carefully. Telehealth is growing, even though hospitals are not. So think carefully about your assets. Go through a process. Think carefully about your assets. Think about the skill set you've acquired from what you've currently done. And then see how they apply to the needs of your customers so that you can continue to serve them. There's always a way to do that if you're determined. And then the third thing I want to talk about is tools, right? One big concern I've heard from business owners is that, this thing costs money. This technology thing you're telling me to do, it costs a lot of money. And I don't have money, especially now. So what can I do? There's going to be a lot of platforms, existing platforms that you can leverage. And you shouldn't be, this is not the time to worry about share of revenue or this or that. Just get on those platforms and see where it goes. Try and build the operational muscle to serve on those platforms and keep your name and your business in the minds of customers. So for example, I've talked to a lot of food restaurant owners who obviously at the onset of this crisis were severely affected. And then guess what they did? They went on Jumia Foods or Old Food and they started to do takeout there. And their businesses are back up, right? They went through a dip and now they're heading back up because people still need to eat. When they're home alone and they don't want to cook all day, what would they do? They would order food. So people's businesses are going back up. I was on a call with the CEO of Eat and Go just this morning. He has all his places up except 3. So he's right back up, right? So think differently about it and try and see if you can use simple tools before building complex and expensive systems, because you need to also conserve cash, right? You can't do everything at the same time. And because of technology, right? Because of technology, and these different technology platforms that now exist, you don't have to build everything from scratch, right? You just have to figure out who is the best platform and then partner with that platform. And there's a lot of resources online. A lot of technology companies are giving away a lot of resources online. So Facebook has a program where you can get free ads. Instagram, so you can use Instagram to advertise your business if you're selling something e-commerce or retail, and then arrange logistics with a partner firm. You can, I know Microsoft has given a lot of software out with Microsoft Teams. So there's so much software out there that you can use. Just go online, take a look, and maybe WIMBIZ can help by aggregating these resources and engaging with these companies about what they can do. So this is very, very important. Now, the last part, I said I was going to tell you about 3 things. The last part is staying safe online. So I have a big burden personally, which is that as we're in this forced migration to digital, because that's what it is. We were in a forced, we have a lot of refugees in our digital world. It is now more important for us to keep everybody safe online. We set up a monitoring center end of last year to monitor, basically think about it as spying on cyber criminals. So that's what we do, right? Like we have a division of our business that does that, because we're very concerned about this migration to digital and how people, cyber criminals can take advantage of our needs to move to digital, to take advantage of us. And we're seeing in the last 3 weeks, I haven't slept well because there's so many alerts, so many disturbing things that we're picking up from this monitoring chatter. So practical example, please do not post any pictures of this Zoom screen. Do not, just don't do it, because there's so many tiny details that can literally just be picked up on, and they become big problems for everybody. So we've had a few states organizations post pictures of their Zoom screen, and the after effects have just been so rapid. It's scary. So please don't post. If you're taking team meetings, no one needs to see pictures of your Zoom screen. Don't do it, right? The second thing is, if somebody calls you and asks you for your account information or any other kind of confidential information, please do not do it. Make sure every site has an SSL and that you can ascertain that that is the correct sites you should be giving your information to in a form, because they would have some kind of provision for data security. Don't give your data anywhere. Somebody's asking what is SSL. I'm keeping an eye on the chat box. Basically, it's a green tick that's right beside the website you're visiting. If you don't see that green tick, it's like a green bar beside the website you're visiting on the address bar where you enter your website. If you don't see it, don't engage until you confirm. And if you're a business, you need to acquire that now, because a lot of people are phishing. People are creating apps that are fake and just collecting people's data and then cleaning out their accounts. It's already a very vulnerable time for a lot of people. Don't be a victim. Protect yourself online. And there's a bunch of resources. I'm going to try and see if I can share some on the chat about staying safe online from CC Hub and a few other community partners. And I would advise you to look online for more tips. It's so important you stay safe online because it's critical that you're not already more disadvantaged than you are already. So these are just a few of my points. I'm sure in the question and answer, we'll have more specific things, more specific questions to answer about stuff. Just before I leave, right, one thing I wanted to explain, so because I've seen it in the questions, this chat bar is so amazing before we go into questions and answers. So the reason why I said don't take a picture of your Zoom screen is this, right? So I'm not going to name what happened, but basically there was a group that was made up of very, very people of public interest. They took a picture of their Zoom screen and put it online. And then cyber criminals were chatting about a number that was exposed or an email that was exposed because of how people signed up. And they took that number and went and put it in a database. And then they found the person who owned that number and her email, right? Because from your phone number, there's so much I can get about you online. So they found the person's phone number, found the person's email, and they were starting to DDoS, like attack the person by overwhelming their account and all sorts of stuff. So be very careful. Don't put out information online. If you decide to go to e-commerce, don't put your personal line that you use for your bank accounts. Try and get a brand new line if you can. Actually, try and get a brand new line that doesn't have any connection to your bank account details so that you can also use that. So these are some of the tips that you need to come and to stay safe online. So these are, that's all I'll say, and I'm happy to take questions from anyone.
Wow.
Hello?
Thank you so much. Hi there. Thank you so much. I can see the chat box is blowing up. I mean, people have a whole bunch of questions down there already, and thank you for taking some of them. Let me go to the Q&A box really quickly, and let's start there. Yeah. Someone has asked, what are the possible advantages and disadvantages of 5G? Good old 5G question is back.
Yeah, I like 5G. So I think the first thing to keep in mind is that 5G is a standard, actually. It's not even a technology. So it's kind of a weird question. So what actually happens is that 5G is basically a standard that allows you to transmit data signal over quote unquote higher frequencies. But these are the same frequencies that your radio and your television use. If you've ever wondered why your radio and your television go so far, they're the same frequencies that your radio and your television use. UHF and VHF, they're very high frequency, right? But they have very low radiation. Frequency and radiation are very different, right? And there's also two types of radiation. There's ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation is the radiation that you experience from X-rays and stuff like that. Okay. While non-ionizing radiation is like, you know, what you get from you know, like your ears and stuff. Still dangerous, but not as dangerous as, say, X-rays. Like we all know how like X-rays are you know, the kind of radiation that can expose you to, and we still use it. So what I'll say about 5G is, look, there might be negative impacts to 5G, but they definitely don't outweigh the positives. Now, because we're in this period of physical distancing and accelerating into a digital future, you could say that it's very timely. Because if we are going to keep doing this, I heard I got cut off sometime in the middle. I'm going to need 5G. Yeah. So that we don't get cut off anymore. We're going to need 5G to ensure that all of us are protected, because we would need to correctly identify who has the virus and who doesn't. We need 5G for a lot of our, the doctor earlier, Dr. Roberts talked about identifying people in our community. Guess what? Biometrics are not the best way to identify people. Facial recognition is, right? And for facial recognition technology to work, 5G has to be used to power real-time cameras so we can capture people's faces and identify them, right? So we know when there's a stranger in our environment or in our community. And it's faster to register people with facial recognition because it just involves us taking a camera to your face. So there's so many of these innovations that would only be possible now with 5G, because 5G basically is a set of standards that build into the network, right? Applications and platforms that make everything work. And at the heart of all those things is identity.
Work together.
And then layered on top of those things is like a real-time connection to validation layers. So this is more technical. But what I'm trying to explain is basically 5G is going to make our lives palatable through this crisis. Maybe even better. So please,
maybe even better. Great.
Right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So I'm getting a lot of questions here about education.
Yes.
Especially of the lower income part of our society. How do they maintain schooling in this time? So we know that a lot of the private schools, you know, already have technology, you know, for like their classes and to resume school. But what about the, you know, like the lower income people in our society? Do you have any suggestions, any ideas at all?
So we're working on some stuff. So this is a big area of research for us as well, because we invest in technology. One of the things we think could work, right, would be IVR, which is as childish as it sounds, just providing phones that people can use to call, and then they could kind of interact with something. But the pedagogical methods and solutions are not yet there. So we're working with experts to say, okay, what does a person need to be able to say in a phone that's toll-free, so it doesn't cost them anything, to be able to learn, right? We'll see how that works. Right now, a lot of people are using television and radio. Might also work, right? Personally, when I was asked for my ideas, what I had said was, now is the time to, at least at the university level, bring back the 1 laptop per child program, right? So every university student should have a monitored laptop they can use to learn on their own, right? That's what I believe, right? But I'm a bit radical in my thinking about this thing. But I think there will be solutions that come up, whether it's IVR for younger kids, where they can talk into a phone, or laptops, or television used creatively. We'll see what works.
Okay, and what does IVR stand for? For those who don't know.
So that's IVR is interactive voice recording. So it makes you feel like you're talking to somebody, but you're not. So for example, if you call the coronavirus numbers, you feel like you're talking to somebody, but you're not, right? You're actually just talking to a machine.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. What are some low-cost tech options for education and training for the low-income population?
Yeah. So that was what I was saying, interactive voice recording on toll-free lines. That's probably, I would argue, the best idea we have right now, right? Maybe text messaging as well, so that people can learn bite-sized. But there's also some new innovations, like there's a company called ULesson, which is partnering with video lectures to kids, SS1. Working well because they had a lot of pedagogical support. I think there'll be a lot of broadcast content or learning content as well that will go online or go on small discs. But for me, my only challenge is, if you don't have a phone, how do you access it? So that might be the challenge. Okay.
People want to know about virtual learning and safety at this point in time. So you've spoken to us quite a bit already about, just the fact that we have a lot of intruders, now because we're all online. What about safety? And then when you're talking about that, can you also speak about this Zoom thing? So you had mentioned that, that we shouldn't screenshot, our Zoom meetings and then post them. Is there anything else that you would recommend that we just don't post at this point in time?
Yeah, in general, anything that has your personal information or any screens, don't post online, is my advice. Because there's a lot of people who have a lot of data about you flying around. So if you can keep especially for the numbers that have your bank accounts attached, if you can keep that as private as possible and don't give that to anybody, that would be very, very good idea. Same thing with the emails that specifically targets where our account details go in. Those things are very important. So people can psychologically manipulate you into giving information that can unlock them. So those are things you should protect your personal information.
Okay, thank you. Now, many people want to know about how this digital reality is going to affect them personally. Like, are they still going to be relevant? I've got a very direct one here saying people, for instance, that are in the financial sector, but can you kind of cover other sectors as well and maybe suggest how people can upskill in this time? So what kind of jobs are going to go extinct, like they just are, and it's just going to happen? And what should we be doing? And what should we be looking out for? And how can we upskill in this time?
Okay, so I think that definitely some jobs will have to go extinct. Any job that involves a lot of physical contacts, right, will go extinct, right? So, for example, I mean, I don't want to mention specific because no one knows the future. So who knows? Everything is about, one thing I keep telling people is everything is about how you evolve in these days. About how you evolve. So if you as a business decide to survive it, even if people have, but anything that involves physical contact, you know, events are going to be a big one. There's likely not to be any events. And I mean, that's going to be very tough business right now, right? Makeup artists, tricky. When you have the risk of a disease, right? Financial services where you are a teller or front facing, very tough. Doctors, if you pivot to telehealth, you still have a fighting chance, right? Yeah. And for example, my doctor wouldn't let me come to the hospital, right? I would say for food and essentials, if you can migrate to e-commerce, you'll be fine. Because people still need food. They're not going to stop eating. So that's it. Fashion is going to be very tough, you know, very, very tough because, you know, people are, first of all, we're going into a recession. So if you're doing anything that's luxury, you know, that's going to be very, very hard. Clubs, very tough, right? Very tough. People are not going to want to, first of all, there's a recession and then this, you know, that's done. So I think that, you know, anything that involves direct sales that you can't do over the phone, very, very tough. And you kind of expand your imagination. I can't every thing for you to learn now. Learning how to learn how estimate the power of written word. People underestimate the power of creating content. Being able to create content is going to be super important now because it's literally the only way you can sell. So whether it's being able to write, being able to speak, being able to do presentations, you know, that would be the only way. I would say, you know, a lot of that factories may want less and less people, and this would be the robotics entirely. And if you know how most factories work, it's not a big leap from where you are today, right? And there will be a safety concern that makes it even more of an imperative. Another thing would be logistics and e-commerce. That would obviously be people powered for now. So being able to you know, put together a logistics supply chain, that would be very important skill. Very, very important skill. Another very important skill, I would argue, would be your ability to interpret data. Because now, you know, now that things are kind of moving from just, first of all, we're all going to virtual workplaces. And in virtual workplaces, there's not a lot of room for politics, right? You don't have a chance to make your case consistently. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So you're going to need to be able to use data to make a point about your contribution and to measure your contributions now, because that's all you will have, right? So those are some of the skill sets you need to have. And then obviously being able to use these virtual and remote tools is super critical. You have to be able to set up a Zoom call. You have to be able to use Google Docs to collaboratively work on Excel to collaboratively work on stuff. One funny thing that has emerged in my firm is how many times we get on calls just to all edit a document. Like it happens like every day now. Before it would be like, go do this, go do that, go do this, you know, but now it's just like, get on a call, like we all get on a call and we edit the document together.
Yeah.
Look at it. So that's going to become very important. You being computer literate, very, very important.
Yeah. Okay. Someone is asking about the broadband penetration in Nigeria, which is currently below 40%. Yes. So she's asking, are we going to be able to even embrace 5G considering the current penetration? And then this switch from, you know, our physical way of doing things to virtual, do we even have the internet capacity to handle any of this? So can the internet crash? So, I keep getting that question. Can the internet crash? So can you tell us, can the internet crash?
Well, here's the thing, right? We can, But I don't think it's going to crash uniformly across the country, because right now, I mean, if the internet crashes, we should all pray against that. It's like if the telecoms crashes, right?
Yeah.
Now, the point made about penetration is a valid one. For example, most people don't know just 7% of the population is on 4G.
Wow.
Right? So it's not like, and this is another thing which is really funny about the hysteria, we're not going to be able to enjoy these technologies now. Most of the population is still on 2G or 3G at most, right? Most of us don't even have the phones that meet the 4G standard. If you remember, for you to get on 4G, you need to get a new SIM. A lot of us don't even have those SIM cards.
The SIMs.
So we're not even set up for 4G. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think we're not gonna, we don't have the penetration, but my sense is that if this is gonna last 18 months, 24 months, we will be forced to put it in place. And the places that put it in place will recover faster, because there people will be able to go to work and so on and so forth. And those that refuse to make that infrastructure investment will just lag behind. So that I suspect that's what's gonna happen.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Someone wants to know, so if she wants to, get into all this tech stuff that we're talking about right now, how should she start? Should she learn AI? Should she learn analytics, programming, coding at this time? Where should she start? Where?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
My advice is start with simple tools focused on your customers. Focus on your customers. So what do your customers need that tech can help them adopt, right? And read about other businesses. There's places online where whenever I'm looking at a business, I'm supporting one of our portfolio companies, I'm like, okay, what can you guys do now that your business is dead, pretty much? I look at other countries and see what their small businesses are doing, and then bring it and try some experiments here. You get what I'm trying to say? So I would say go online, look at what your peers are doing elsewhere in the world, how they're managing through the crisis, and then bring that wisdom here. That would be my advice.
Here. Yeah. Okay. Now, there's this video, one of these viral videos that have been going around on WhatsApp, one of these things that has frustrated me endlessly, with this implanting of chips, right? Somebody here is asking about the implanting of chips. How safe is it? Is it really, is it true? Are we all going to get implanted with chips? Over to you.
Look, I don't know. I wouldn't let anybody implant me with chips yet, but I don't know. I think your phone is about as good as a chip these days. With your phone, I know everywhere you've been. I don't need to implant you with any chip. I know what you've done, so, and for me, I think that would probably be the better way. If somebody wanted to track you, I wouldn't need a chip. I would just use your phone. So I don't think it would work. I just don't think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Okay. Someone wants to know if startups startups in their forming stages are able to get into accelerator programs in this time. So are there still any active accelerator programs even in the midst of this pandemic?
Yeah. So there's been a cash crunch in the technology sector specifically. And right now, any funding response is more or less focused on COVID-19 and nothing else, which makes sense. I think that if there will be some accelerators coming back online, once businesses are ready to shift, so to speak, right? So they'll need to shift their response to how can they move forward faster as a technology business.
Okay.
Then they would need technology companies to partner with them to do that, and the accelerator programs will come back online. But right now, perhaps for the next 3 to 6 months, until people get a hang of virtual acceleration, it will be difficult.
All right, great, thanks. Someone wants to know, how can technology assist the government in transparent allocation and sharing of social intervention to the vulnerable people in Nigeria?
That's a fantastic question. I just wrote a paper for the Economic Advisory Council myself, talking to them about how it's easier now for you to provide direct palliative support to people. To my wife, my family, they're American citizens. I'm not. I refuse the passport, but my wife is American. And like she and a lot of other people who are Americans have gotten the direct checks into their bank account.
Yeah,
All they
their
had
accounts.
to do was file their taxes for the previous year. And you know, I think something similar can be designed here with the BVN. Part of what we're advocating to policymakers is they should not forget what we call the missing middle, right? So there's a lot of focus on the bottom of the pyramid for good reason, because they're poor and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of focus on, obviously, the rich people will sort themselves out, one way or the other, right? But the missing middle, the people that we might have to let go or that work for us, they're not very poor, but they're kind of in between, the middle, maybe forgotten. And those guys are actually easier to reach, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? They have BVNs, they have bank accounts. Even 10,000 Naira for every valid bank account, every valid BVN is not a bad idea. You get what I'm saying? That money will boost the economy, because we're about to go into a deflationary period economically, right? Where a lot of people are holding on to money because they're afraid of the future. And to make it worse, our banks don't have enough interest rates to make those people bring out their cash, because they've been forced to move to this new CRR regime. So there's a lot of economic impact going on. And the only way for us to set a new floor for prices to avoid people cutting prices too much and hurting the economy is for us to give every single person some money. And that's possible to do now. We can even do it with electronic currency. There will be no impact to mints, no cost to the government, except just printing money, pretty much. So I think that could happen. There's a lot of support. I heard this morning that Tinubu made a statement saying he supports the idea, and a lot of state governments are making the statement they support the idea. Let's see how far we can take that. But I think that there's ways to do it now. And we have 35 million people who have BVNs. That's a good starting point, right? You keep the market open, people will get, that money will go round. We will feel it. If everybody in Nigeria got 10,000 Naira, we will all feel it. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the case we're making.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so someone who lives outside of Nigeria, whose local phone is inactive, is asking if there's any way to know if her BVN has been compromised because of all these things that we're hearing about cyber attacks and all that. Is there like any way? Do you know of any way?
So my own advice, first of all, would be, if you can, detach your phone if you even suspect it's been compromised from your accounts. Just remove it and try and see whether you can do something else. And then closely monitor your accounts up until when you do that, right? Closely monitor your account. It's going to be very hard if you don't have time, I mean, that's the reason why we say don't even try it in the first place and put information up there, because there's no way to detect when they're going to strike. If you get my point, there's no way. So
of course.
They're very stealthy. So just watch your account balances very carefully. If you can, take your account offline, and even though you need to do electronic banking, find a new number and put it on the number or some other way to do it. If you can, by logging directly into the app, for example, instead of using your phone number or stuff like that, just let's try that.
All right, thanks. What about online protection? So there's quite a few questions here about how people can protect themselves online, think about this from the perspective of people maybe who haven't been doing that previously, who this is their first time really paying attention to cybersecurity and protection. Do you have any tips that you can share?
Yeah, so one is regularly change your password if you can. You just regularly change your password. Don't keep it the same. Second of all, monitor your account closely, right? Third of all, don't give your information to anybody for any reason at all. Just don't do it. Except like it's online, it's your bank, and you have that SSL, encrypted SSL, because that for that to be on the person's site, some physical information has been retrieved from the owner that guarantees that we know who they are on the internet. You know what I mean? They're not just some faceless person. And no cyber criminal will do that, because if they get reported, then we'll be able to find them.
Find them, exactly.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cookies. So people want to know about cookies. You know, there's so many sites now that, you know, ask you about accepting the cookies when you log on to them. People want to know what that's all about and if they should be accepting cookies. Is it safe? Is it safe or not?
It's a privacy concern, not a security concern. So with cookies, what they're really doing is they're tracking your web activity and selling the information to advertisers, but they're not tagging it to you specifically. They're just saying, you know, women who visit this site will visit this site afterwards. I personally don't like it, so I'm always incognito online, but it's not a security concern.
Okay. What about a way of tracking stuff? So some people have asked about, you know, all this working from home and all that. So some people here who have a lot of staff working from home want to know if there's a way to monitor, you know, what their staff is doing. Do you have any tips for that?
Sure. There is software called mobile device management. And it's very important for the security of your staff. Mobile device management. So most enterprise suites offer it. So like Google or Microsoft offer mobile device management functionality where they can allow you to shut down your staff's computer if they don't look like they're doing what they should do, or give you an account of how they're spending their time online. So there are a lot of good mobile device management tools that you can.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Okay, so we have very few minutes left and we have a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to run right through them and just answer them as quickly as you can, because people really have so many questions here. Yeah. Somebody wants to know about like a law firm, like how do they explore opportunities in this time? I know that you spoke about it briefly earlier, but can you just give us some quick tips for law firms? And then adding on to that as well, manufacturers of luxury products.
Yeah. Okay, so law firms, my sense right now is you move to tele. So like you can't ask lawyers, you can't ask people to come to your chambers anymore. You have to do it offline. The law firm. For the courts, try and steer your customers towards arbitration and see whether, because most multi-door resolution courts actually do hold online, unlike our courts. So you can try and steer your customers in that direction so they can actually get some resolution. And it's in everybody's interest, because if the courts will not open for 2 years, then none of you are. So that would be my advice. Okay. In terms of, you asked another question about something else.
Luxury products. So people that produce luxury products want to know what they should be doing.
Honestly, I don't see a market for luxury products right now. It's just not. It's just not something people will spend money on. Yeah.
Even though, did you see that article about what happened in China, I believe, where I think it was the Hermes store? Yeah. When they opened up, they got the most. I mean, the amount of revenue they made in that day was ridiculous. Apparently, people went and spent and bought all this, all these luxury items. I thought that was interesting.
China is a very strange place. Yeah. They heavily government-funded economy, and people have faith in the government's response. In Nigeria, where you don't know whether you're on your own. Yeah. Frankly, you don't want to spend your money like that.
Yeah, very true. Okay. Somebody wants to know how to identify the good tech companies and how they are funded in this time. So like people that want to invest, as an example, or maybe want to buy shares in tech companies, because we keep hearing that tech is the place to invest right now, invest in tech. So somebody wants to know what she should be looking out for.
So I think what you should do is read quite a bit of the reports if you're able to, and look for companies where the use cases make sense to you. So for example, if you want to invest in Facebook, it makes sense because every day you're on Instagram Live. If you want to invest in Zoom, perhaps accepting their security challenges that have been made publicized, that would make sense, right? If you wanted to, so about it from the point of view of am I using this product? Don't just, and then read what the analyst says instead of just making a.
Okay, thank you.
Does
Now
that,
for
does that make
Zoom,
sense? Yeah.
yes, it does. Thank you so much. So Zoom, I have a lot of questions here about Zoom because everybody's using Zoom now. Even those that couldn't, that didn't have any idea what Zoom was a few weeks back are all up on Zoom. So people want to know about security on Zoom. We've all heard about Zoom bombing. It happened to me even before. I was on a call and got a nasty bombing. I know that there's security tips out there, but then can you just give our audience some quick tips for those that are using Zoom for their meetings and what they should be looking at as far as securing their meetings?
So if you have a closed meeting, not like an open one like this, what we do is we have to admit you into our meeting. So we don't have any passcode or anything. Like we like to be super secure. So if it's a closed team meeting, we must admit each person. You understand? There's no passcode. We get you outside on to admit you, like in a meeting. Then the other level would then be giving them a passcode, right? And then after passcode, then you can have your open meeting. But I would advise if you're having a team meeting or private meeting, let everybody be admitted. If there are not too many attendees, they've kind of curtailed Zoom bombing a bit. One thing I would say about technology companies is, you can just imagine a company that was just serving its customers gradually, then all of a sudden there's this wave of people coming, like anybody will crack under the barrel. And like people have said worse things about companies we respect today. I remember when Facebook was getting spammed all the time. I remember when Twitter was always having whales. So if you have a long memory, you're not so shocked and you just kind of work with the company. The other thing is that, look, the alternatives are more expensive. So if you can afford them and the security that comes with them, by all means, go use them. But I don't have that money. I don't use it. So I'll stick to Zoom.
You stick to Zoom, right? Okay. So 2 questions in one. So real estate. So people that are in the real estate market, and also somebody else that's in food services would both like to know what they can do at this point in time to remain relevant, so to work remotely and to keep pushing out their services. So the food services, I know that you had mentioned earlier about, just delivery, but for the real estate people, they would also like to know. So can you give us tips for both, please?
Yeah, for real estate, it might be a function of you thinking about your customer and trying to figure out whether there's a way you can collect in shorter term, like weekly or monthly or something like that. That is working for some landlords and tenants, as opposed to a full year in advance. Nobody has the money for. So that might be worth thinking about as a landlord. At least you can kick them out if they're not able to pay. I don't know if anybody would actually do that, but shorter time cycles might work better, except somebody's willing to pay you long term, and then you should definitely take that money. But really tricky one. I think homes will be better, but I think rents will be cheaper. I think I'm not sure. It's still too early to say. Commercial is going to be very hard. Commercial is going to be very difficult. I will tell you for free. I don't see people going back to the cost. The first thing that will be commercial real estate in most companies. Because the reality is that most companies are now discovering they can work from home. And it's both it's safer to do that. So that I think most people will not renew commercial real estate. So that's what I think in that red. Food service definitely is going to go to takeouts. So there's all this, takeouts is definitely the way to go. Jumia Foods, All Food, Eden, there's a bunch of startups that can help you move your food and find an audience for the food. So
and deliver.
Definitely that.
Market for them.
Yeah, somebody talked about events. Events is tough, man. I'm still looking for a good model for what people are pivoting events to. But honestly, I've not seen anything. The closest I've seen is, being able to do a production online. So basically like, I don't know how many of us watched Two Faces concert, but it was very clear that, production value wasn't the same. Some people have mastered that of bringing in internet streaming and setting up lights and stuff. If you can do it, you should. But honestly speaking, is it a big business as big as doing a 2,000 person wedding, which will not happen in a long time for the next probably 18 months? No. So that, I mean, that's just what it is for now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ian. So somebody wants to know, can a webcam be used to monitor your activities online? So should you put your webcam off when you're, when you're just online, or is it okay
I have a tape
have it on?
for mine, except I'm online like with you like this. I always have a tape on mine, and I make sure it's off all the time. It can be used.
Okay.
There are viruses and software that can surreptitiously turn on your camera. So not to make you paranoid, but it does happen, right?
It does happen, right? Okay. What about paying bills? So, there's a lot of online payments going on right now because of our new virtual reality. So the question here is, how safe is that? And what should we be looking out for when we're making payments online, buying data, and all that?
So I would first of all only use verified payment. So, InterSwitch, Flutterwave, Paystack, people that you can hold responsible and you can, call somebody and talk to them. They have a responsibility to diligence the people that they pay money to. They cannot tell you what happened to your money. Even if it's a fraudster, they would be able to help you. You can also charge back. If I can, I would limit my payments to bank transfers as much as possible, because you can see who you're paying.
Okay.
And there's more control. Okay. But I would only use the web version or the app. I wouldn't use like USSD for now. That's me.
Okay.
I would create a second. I already have a second account, which is not connected to the internet at all.
Okay.
And I just kind of put money in there. The banks are open, so I go to the bank and I transfer the money. Right? Okay. That's just because I'm paranoid,
Yeah.
So I'm paranoid. So I don't do that. Very, very silly story. I'll tell you just so that there's nobody who's a master at this. One time I got robbed of 40 million naira literally from my bank account. Just disappeared.
Wow.
Like that. So I learned my lesson the hard way. So,
wow.
Even though I'm a payment company CEO, payments, everything, but I would use all the precautions. I take my time. I do transactions at the same time. I don't let anyone touch my account, stuff like that. So you have to take the precautions right now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we don't have much time left, and there's still so many questions. But we're going to have to round up right now because we don't have much time left, and we have to keep to time because that's what we do. Yeah. So, Iyi, is there anything that you would like to share? Just final words in a minute for everybody.
Yeah. So for me, I will tell you, your reaction to this crisis will determine whether you come out of this a champion, right? So, there's a lot of reactions and there's a lot of postulations people can make. But one thing we tell ourselves on our team, or we started telling ourselves on our team, you're 100% responsible for the future. That's how we end all our meetings. You're 100% responsible for the future. No one can predict your life. No one can determine the course of your life. Everybody can say whatever they want to say, but you're 100% responsible for the future. So walk with that confidence that whatever it is that you decide to do will stand, right? But the worst thing is inaction. Just don't sit there and wait.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Iyi. Thank you so much. Can we all give Iyi...
People are asking about my contact details. People are asking about my contact details.
Okay.
I can share my email.
Okay.
So you can just email me.
Okay.
And I'll try my best to respond. To set up calls. I'm trying to do that.
To respond.
As you can imagine, it's a marathon.
Okay.
Anti-pollution knows.
Okay.
But I will share my...
Who is your auntie? Excuse me, sir. Who is your auntie? I'm warning you.
He had future.
All right. Iyi. Okay, so everybody...
Okay.
That's Iyi at Future.Africa. Thank you so much, Iyi. Can we give Iyi a resounding virtual applause for that amazing session? I mean, you went through so many things in such a short time. We are so grateful to you for squeezing us in. And to Dr. Roberts, again, huge thank you from everybody here at WIMBIZ and from all the attendees. There is going to be a short survey coming to all your emails after this. Please fill out our evaluation form. We want to do more of this. We want to keep making them better. And Iyi has also shared his email address in the chat box, right? Is it in there, in the chat box?
It is in the chat box. So it's just Iyi@Future.Africa. That's
fantastic. It's Iya featured at Africa, so that you can send him emails with, you know, questions that you may have that weren't answered. But thank you so much, everyone. It was a wonderful time having you all here. You guys have been a fantastic audience. And a round of applause to Iyi and Dr. Roberts again. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. That's the end of today's session. So we will contact you all again via email. Thank you so much for coming, and have a wonderful evening, and stay safe. Stay safe. Thanks, Iyi. Take care. Bye.